Preparation towards our moment in time. Have you ever thought of that? That sometimes we've prayed for a dream, we've wished for it, but are we prepared for it? I've had times in my life where I wasn't prepared. I was remembering in high school, I think it was my sophomore year. I was having a great, fun summer, and football season was coming. I didn't train at all. And we had these things where we're running 10 240s, they're called. So from end zone down and back, and you had certain times you had to reach. And if you didn't get your pads. I didn't. Man, I threw up. And it was awful. I wasn't prepared for that moment. There's been other times where I was prepared. Actually, same sport, a few years later, I was very prepared, and it ended up being my best year ever. And so today's video is 7 things we need to do to prepare for the moment, because we don't know when it's going to happen. See, we serve a God of suddenlies. And the thing about it is, sometimes it doesn't look like anything's happening, and then suddenly everything changes. So how do we prepare for that moment? Kind of like David preparing for that moment with Goliath. He was slaying bear with a sling and lion. He was prepared. So number 1, stay humble. Sometimes the more we learn something, the more we know it, the more arrogant we get and non-teachable. But the thing is are we humble enough to know we have not arrived? Because you ain't in the ground yet because you're watching it. I know, that's wild that I could know that you're not dead. So you have things to learn. You have people to learn from. And if we're not careful, some of the biggest lessons we can learn, we don't listen because we think we know more than someone, or we're not evaluating it. But stay humble while you're waiting. Number 2, keep your priorities straight. See, it's easy to worship the dream instead of the creator of the dream. It's easy to pour ourselves into the new business we start instead of serving God and loving our families first. See, priorities are something we need to practice, because at some point in time it becomes hard to practice those priorities because we get so busy with other things. So keep your priorities straight. Number 3, stay grounded in your faith. See, this is a daily surrendering of our will to God's will, and this happens when we surrender our faith. Number 4, be a good steward. See, a steward is not the owner. In fact, if you don't know what that term is, it's an old English term, and it's basically the person that was in charge of the king's things like they were their own, but they weren't theirs. They didn't own them. We're called to do the same thing. Everything you have in your life is not yours, it's God's. And so are we stewarding it with that mindset? And this means with an open hand. Sometimes the more we care about something, the more we love it, the more it gets out of priority and we try to squeeze it and hold on to it forever. But it's God's. And so are we having the steward mindset? That's super critical. Number 5, surround yourself with people going in the same direction as you, that love God and that live in priority. We need community, my friend. You are not called to live this life alone. You're called to have a community of people. And this is important to help you as you're preparing for this moment. You know, even recording these YouTube videos, I have community, and I was meeting with them yesterday, and I had these ideas, and I thought they were brilliant, and they challenged them, and we argued about it. And I left with a proper perspective that without it, honestly, I would have been worse off. Do you have community around you? If you do not, this is something that you need to build in, because they will keep us grounded. They will keep us in hope before our moment arrives, and they will keep us grounded when our moment arrives. So community, super critical. Number 6, stay focused on your purpose. It's easy to get distracted. We can get distracted by measurements. We can get distracted by money. We can just get distracted by all these things. You know, on YouTube, it's easy for me to speak to this. You can get distracted by subscriber rate, view duration, how long someone watches a video, how many do they like it, do they thumbs up it, do they comment, all these things, right? It can get overwhelming. But I have a purpose for doing these videos, and it's something that God has called me to do. not to measure the results. Same thing for whatever God's calling you to, forever what you're stirred up about. There's a purpose behind it. Don't lose the purpose. It could be that whatever your dream is, it's to reach one person. That's it. Or maybe one person that's watching you. And you might think it looks like a failure, but you're living out the exact purpose you're supposed to have. Number 7, I touched on it a little bit right there, but in the end, dreams are not about you. Your dream, though cool and awesome, and I'm sure it's really exciting, it's not about you. And if it is about you, I would argue it's not from God. See, God doesn't call us to be self-centered. That's our flesh. God calls us into service. God calls us into loving Him and loving others. And so it is not about you. And the more we can remember that, the more we'll be happy along the journey, and we'll be more grounded when that moment happens. You know, the Bible doesn't say fully what happens in some of these moments where God moved dramatically, but at other times He does. So there's moments like Elijah where he has this awesome experience with God where God shows up in a miraculous way. Well, what is he doing 48 hours later? He's miserable in a cave crying out to God, saying he's the only one left, running from a woman. He's at this super low point. I'm not saying that he got in this moment where he made it all about him. But what I am saying is that can be a temptation, that we take our eyes off of serving God and serving others and put it on ourselves. And it's a common thing that we all struggle with. So I hope these 7 points help you to be ready for that moment, because everything could change and we need to be prepared. Have a great day, and God bless you in your journey as you prepare for whatever God has for you.